Hello, hello. So I am Cassandra Sullivan, founder of Revive Your Hope Coaching, and I help others rise above their grief to live a life beyond the loss that they've experienced. Today's video, I'm going to be talking about 7 stages of grief, not just 5. So there are 2 other stages that are kind of an extension of the Dr. Kubler Ross's grief cycle. So grief, again, I've stated this so many times, but is so intimate and can be felt in all these stages in no particular order and for no particular length of time. Everyone experiences them differently. But today I'm going to be speaking of them from a place of quote unquote order and letting you know kind of my experience through these stages. And it's just going to be a small snippet of what I've experienced through them. So grief being messy and sometimes ugly and just depressing and something that no one wants to experience, yet we all experience it at some point. There is something so beautiful to be had when you go through these stages and you really allow and appreciate them. So much healing can come from just allowing these stages to flow through you. So I'm going to just jump right on in. And so this is going to be a little bit longer of a video, so bear with me. So the first stage that I want to talk about today is shock. And shock is kind of that very first thing that you feel, like instant shutdown or paralysis when you hear what's happened or you're experiencing something bad that's happened. So for me, my shock came in the form of not being able to really comprehend what was happening in the moment that it was going on. So Christmas Eve, my partner at the time came rushing into my room because he was giving me a night off from baby so that I could sleep. So he came rushing into the room, screaming, yelling. I couldn't comprehend, came out, still couldn't act on anything. So he had to perform CPR. I called 911. I, kind of just sat there in shock. So paramedics came, the chaplain came, police officers came, and all I remember really is just craziness and sitting on the couch with the chaplain because they wouldn't allow us to go in the ambulance with Braden at the time, and they just were questioning us, trying to get story of what happened, and I just sat there, kind of like, what the fuck's happening right now? I don't understand what's going on. So for me, that is how shock showed up in that moment. It just kind of paralyzed me. So that is the first stage that you kind of go through. And then there is denial of what's going on. So denial is where you kind of try to avoid the inescapable truth of what is happening. So when you hear the bad news or you're experiencing the traumatic experience, you just want to kind of like that. This isn't happening. No, this isn't real. Not happening to me. So for me, it showed up at 2 separate times. It really showed up the first time at the hospital, waiting in the ER room to hear from the doctors. So they had us in a private little waiting room to the side, and the doctor came in and said, "Hey, I'm so sorry. There's nothing we can do. We've tried everything." And it just I probably screamed, sobbed. I did all the things. And then I was like, no. Like, you have it wrong, doctor. You don't know best. Let me see him. I need to see him. He'll be fine. He'll be fine if I just hold him. No, this isn't happening. So that was my first denial stage. And then I also experienced it again. Later on, I would go to the morgue where he was, and they would let me hold him. And so I would hold him, and I'm sitting there just like, okay, he can totally come back to life. Jesus has raised the dead. Like, this has happened before. Like, it can totally happen for me. Like this is just not happening. This isn't my life. Like, this is not going on right now. So those were a couple of my experiences with denial. Totally illogical, doesn't make sense to some people. But that's kind of what happens with grief. So the third stage today that I want to talk about is anger. And anger is a big one that we have. Anger, emotions of anger can really arise when we feel wronged or something undeserved has happened to us. Anger towards God, anger towards higher authority, anger towards police, doctors, yourself, you name it. So anger for me, I was really angry with myself for needing a night off because I needed sleep, for not being able to act quicker when someone needed to jump into action. Thank God my partner at the time was able to, do what I couldn't show up and do. I was angry at him for, not maybe waking up earlier to check on him or sooner to check on him and waiting, 2 hours to check on him to see if he needed to eat. And, I was ultimately really angry at God. I was angry at God because I felt like he took my son from me. He allowed this to happen. And that is another video for another time. But I mean, those were my big angry, emotions were towards myself, my partner, and God. And that took some time to really resolve within myself. So I felt that for a very long time. So anger, you can show up short-tempered, you can lash out, you can blame and shame and guilt, yourself or whoever you're showing these signs to. And just definitely something to take a look at. And yes, you want to allow all these emotions to come up because you don't want to suppress them and hold them in your body. However, you really want to make the choice to deal with them in a more healthy way. So I'm going to move on. So the fourth stage that I'm going to talk about today is bargaining. So we want so badly for this situation not to be happening to us, or this news that we're hearing not to be what's going on. And so we will find any way to get out of it at any cost. We want to get out of this situation at any cost to us. So I literally begged God, like sobbing on my floor of the bathroom, begging God to just either take me instead, let Braden live. I asked him to bring him back, and I would be the best Christian ever in the whole wide world, and I would do all the good things, and just please, 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 please bring him back. I also, really wanted to have another baby. After some time had went by, I wanted another baby, and I was like, okay, well, if I, marry my partner, if we do all the right things, maybe God will give us Braden back. Maybe I'll become pregnant and we can get Braden back. Again, illogical, doesn't make sense. But it is what it is. Grief isn't logical. So anyhow, so that was really my bargaining with God to take this situation away, let life go back to what it was before. The fifth stage that I am going to touch on today is a big stage that a lot of people tend to feel for longer lengths of time. It is depression. So the fifth stage I'm talking about is depression. Here is when you really realize and come to terms with there's no way out of what is going on. It's happening. Whether you try to stuff it away, look the other way, bargain your way out of it, it's happening. And there's nothing you can do about it. You can feel really alone. You can feel abandoned. You can feel wronged, undeserving of what's going on. You don't want to burden other people with what you're feeling and going through and the emotions that you're having. So again, feeling really lonely. So this I went to the ER with a panic attack within the first year of losing Braden, and got on all kinds of medications for anxiety and panic and sleeping and depression, to make sure that it didn't happen to me. So, after that, I kind of just kept going with life, because life, for some reason, doesn't stop for you. When your life stops, life outside of you does not stop. So I learned to keep moving with it, and to slap a smile on my face, and to just keep going, keep moving. You're happy. It's okay. You still have a full life. You can have other kids. So I started taking on what other people were saying to me, and just kind of, okay, we got this. Let's go. And it took a few years, and everything that I'd stuffed came rushing up to the top, and out it came with a whole new layer of anger and sadness and depression. And I became bedridden with depression. I was newly married, moved to Fair Oaks, with my husband, was working at Trader Joe's, and had this awesome life. And it hit hard and fast. No one was expecting it. No one knew what was going on. I mean, my poor freaking husband. And I was in bed all the time. Unless I was getting ready for my shift at work, I would wake up. I worked 5 minutes from my house. I would wake up 2 hours before my shift so that I could take my shower, do my hair, make sure makeup was on, and I was smiling to hide what was actually going on underneath. I would show up, I'd be happy, I'd be, just my normal self, and, talkative, I'm outgoing, and, we would hold parties here for people. And then I would come home from my shift or after a party, and I would just go back into bed. Makeup on, hair done, didn't care. I'd go back into bed. And my husband was just like, what is happening right now? Like, what's going on? And it's because I stuffed so much pain and anger and sadness and all of the negative emotions down for so long that they just were there. They were not going to be stuffed any longer. They were coming out, and I had no idea at that time how to deal with any of it. Didn't want to deal with any of it. Didn't even know where to start. It was scary and it was painful. So depression hit hard. So that was my big depression phase. Not to say that I didn't battle with it on and off before then, but that's when it really hit. So from depression, the sixth stage that I'm going to talk about is testing. So this isn't one of the typical 5. This is something that was added in just as shock. Shock was not one of the typical 5 as well. So testing is where you're ready to kind of start testing the waters and finding ways of coping and rebuilding your life in a more authentically happy way, not just slapping a smile on, popping a pill and saying everything's good, but more of, okay, how can I really deal with these emotions and get back into control of my emotions, and not let this grief be controlling my life anymore? What's out there? And so for me, this came, I had that bedridden depression time, and I had a really amazing friend who we had built so much trust together, and she was so safe and knew exactly what to say and when to say it and how to say it so that I could hear it. And we had a chat, and it was just like, oh gosh, okay, I'm really that bad. I need to figure something out here. So I started, researching. We found a weekend conference down in Irvine called Healing is a Choice. Went there and completely opened the floodgates to all the healing that was to be had. Little did I know the journey that I was going to embark on after this conference, but I mean, and I fought tooth and nail to not go. And everyone in my life rallied and countered every excuse I had. So they took every excuse off the table for me, and there was just no way I was not going. So, yeah, so you find ways. You hire a therapist, you hire a coach, you attend classes, workshops, events. I mean, anything you can get your hands on that really resonates with you, go do it. Go do it. So that's part of the testing phase. Is really finding these things to help you. So the final stage that I'm going to talk about is acceptance and hope. I guess acceptance, bringing in hope again. So this can be a very difficult stage for a lot of people. Accepting can sometimes equate that you're just forgetting your loved one or leaving them in the past and just moving on without any of that. And that was one of the hardest things for me, was like, if I accept that this really happened, like, then he's really gone. Like, he's just gone. And so it was really coming to the realization that acceptance doesn't mean that they're gone. It doesn't mean that they were never here and they never, impacted or affected your life. It's really just being able to move forward in your life and filling your life with more joy and hope and bringing them into that. So I found ways to honor Braden in acceptance and visiting his grave site and doing things there to incorporate him in my life now. My son Kieran will grow up knowing about his older brother. I always incorporate Braden in our lives, and not day to day. I'm not pounding it into Kieran's head, but there are things that we go do with, at Braden's gravesite that I incorporate Kieran in. Like, he will always know he had an older brother. Always. My niece and nephew love Braden. Like, they love going to visit the gravesite and taking him flowers or balloons. And I mean, he's just a part of our lives still. So we've been able to really incorporate that and not leave him behind and not act like he wasn't here, but really embrace the little short life that he had and the big impact that he had with that short life. And so it's not forgetting what happened or your loved one or, your experience, but more of just finding ways to bring it forward with you in your life so that you can move forward and live your life fully to what you're supposed to be doing in your life. So, grief, again, is not a one size fits all. Not everybody experiences all of these stages all the time. You ebb and flow through them. You can sit in any stage for any length of time, really. It depends on you. Again, you're unique. Your journey is so unique to you. It's just no one else is going to experience it the way you do. So I, really hope that this video has helped you in some way really understand these different stages and how they can show up. But I would love to hear from you. So if you could comment below and just share your story, share, how grief, the grief stages have shown up for you. What stage are you in, and if you want to dive even deeper, reach out and let's schedule some time together to, dive in to see what stage you're at and where to go and how to get there, how to get you to the acceptance and really be able to live your life free of the bondage of grief, because it's possible. It doesn't mean that grief won't ever show up, but you won't be bonded by it. It won't be controlling you anymore. So let's chat. Just DM me. I'll put my email below for you. And if you know that this video can help someone else, please share this video. Share it with a friend or a loved one who is either experiencing grief or, could just use a little pick-me-up or to know that they're normal with what they're experiencing. I hope that you guys have a fantastic rest of the day and hope to hear from you and hear your comments. All right, bye.